Okay, it's important now that we move on to our speaker. We super appreciate, James, you giving us this talk. The members ourselves give the talks. We have a planning meeting every quarter that's open to the whole community to talk about talks that we'd like to give. And so now I'm going to hand off to James. His topic for today is Black Lives Matter good or bad for America?
All right. How everybody doing? I go by the name of James SolarMind, and we're going to be talking about, is the Black Lives Matter movement good or bad for Black America? I mean, for America. And the reason why I wanted to pose this conversation is because, what you already know, there's a lot of controversy over the movement in itself. In light of especially the George Floyd situation, a lot of people attribute the looting to Black Lives Matter. It even dwindled into the discussion of politics. A lot of conservatives feel as though that, along with Antifa, are organizations that need to be eradicated. So I just wanted to kind of pose the question and open it up for discussion. And, we could just build and see where our minds meet and how this thing can formulate into maybe some type of solution, I guess we could say. But I have some general information about the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe for those who are unaware, and it'll just better help the conversation in itself. So I'll just read some things off the website, just so we can have a general understanding of the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of people are maybe unaware that the Black Lives movement was not initiated from police brutality. It started from the Trayvon Martin situation. And, we know that from George Zimmerman was, killed Trayvon Martin. So this is from the official website. I'm going to read just a little bit in the category of what we believe, the Black Lives Matter movement. It says, 4 years ago, what is known as the Black Lives Matter Global Network began to organize. It started out as a chapter-based, member-led organization whose mission was to build local power and intervene when violence was inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. In the years since, we committed to struggle together to imagining and creating a world free of anti-Blackness, where every person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. It says Black Lives Matter began as a call to action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. Our intention from the very beginning was to connect Black people from all over the world who have a shared desire for justice to act together in their communities. So it goes on to say that, enraged by the death of Trayvon Martin and the subsequent acquittal of his killer, George Zimmerman, and inspired by a 31-day-long takeover of the Florida State Capitol by Power Youth and Dream Defenders, we took to the streets. A year later, we set out together on the Black Lives Matter Freedom Ride to Ferguson in search of justice for Mike Brown and all of those who have been torn apart by state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. So this will be the foundation of the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of things that some of the things that I found to be interesting about the movement, personally, was its development. We know, as what I just read, but then it began to kind of open the door for a lot of other movements. I think a lot of people. I was looking at a video with Candace Owens, and those who don't know who Candace Owens is, she's very conservative. She's very conservative, and she is a Trump supporter, and she speaks a lot on Fox News. and she was speaking on the Black Lives Matter movement, and she was saying she is an advocate that it is inciting racial violence. So some of the things that I want to talk about today is I had a list of topics that I wanted to discuss or subtitles. One of them is the name or title Black Lives Matter offensive to other ethnic groups? And the reason why I chose that to be one of the subtopics is because you had a lot of people, once the Black Lives Movement began to develop, they began to make other hashtags like All Lives Matter. And that kind of sparked a controversy within itself. And I think that it's kind of similar to the I don't see color statement almost. I think I talked about that on here or maybe another platform, I don't know. But it was kind of similar to that. And that's how a lot of people took it. And I think that as what I forget the guy that was on here, the Asian guy, I forget what his name was. Was he on this show? I'll be mixing the show with the other show. But he was saying something along to the lines of that it's racist to focus in on just Black lives. And I read this article. It was kind of making a comparison with the civil rights movement and of the 1960s and the Black Lives Matter movement of today. And one of the differences was that in itself, the title. And I think the civil rights movement, just by how it was labeled, kind of opened the door for a lot of other, injustices to be put into the movement in itself. And I think that the Black Lives Matter movement, just by the title, kind of doesn't do that in a way. And this is what is being suggested in the article. So some people had an issue with just the Black Lives Movement being called, the Black Lives Movement being called Black Lives Movement. Another question that I wanted to pose to you guys is, should the Black Lives Matter movement spend more time and resources dealing with Black on Black violence? And once again, I'm gonna go to Candace Owens. She actually ran down statistics of Black on Black violence in the community, and she also made reference to certain situations that occurred at the time of the George Floyd situation. And one of the things was that one of the situations was, I'll punch it up real quick. It was a 1-year-old that was killed in Chicago. And this was actually at the height of the George Floyd protests. You had this situation occur, and it really didn't receive that much attention. And she began to run down statistics speaking on Black violence in the inner city communities. And she was posing the argument that if Black Lives Matter is really about what they're saying, they will focus more in on Black violence, because that by far is a bigger problem than police brutality. This is what she was suggesting. So I want to quickly maybe pull up an article for those who was unaware of what actually took place. It says a 1-year-old boy was fatally shot while riding in the car with his mother Saturday afternoon in Inglewood neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. Police said the shooting was reported at around 2 p.m. on South Haston Street near West 60th Place. According to officers, the boy's mother, who is approximately 22 years old, had left a laundromat and was driving south of Hasselt when another vehicle pulled up alongside her. Someone inside the vehicle opened fire, striking the child in the chest. Chicago Police Department Chief of Operations Field Waller said the mother drove the young boy to St. Bernard Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. And she was just showing that this is just one example of many cases that goes on in the inner city that needs to really be addressed. And I guess she was suggesting that it was almost contradictory for people to talk about police brutality and not deal with this, because this is something that occurs more frequently in the Black community. Another question that I had, the third and final question, would be, are certain tactics used by the Black Lives Matter too aggressive and can incite violence or police confrontation? And this is just me personally looking at certain movements, because the ones that I actually participated in, it was not really any violence, and it was more like a protest, a general protest. But I did see on the news a lot of protests, kind of, getting aggressive, where the police had to, begin to have to deal with the situation. So those are the three questions that I want to pose. I actually seen, we're going to get into the tactics a little bit. I seen on a video, it was like the police officers, they were standing there. I guess they was trying to prevent them from further marching. So it was like a line of police officers standing there, and then you had the Black Lives Matter movement, or people who represent the Black Lives Matter movement. It was standing there, and they were like yelling at the police, and then in the police face, and then and then something happened. I don't know. We don't really see what happened, but then the police just ran out, and then they started shooting the rubber bullets, and it got a little crazy. And this, I believe, was in an article that I was reading when it was making a comparison to the nonviolent movement in the 1960s and the Black Lives Matter movement of today. And they were saying that from a strategical standpoint, the nonviolence movement of the 1960s probably would be more effective, in the sense that they kind of made it their business to show that they were completely nonviolent, and not just nonviolent, just really non-confrontational in a way. They just was kind of like, in a way, directly dealing with the police. Obviously, we know protest is confrontational, but dealing with the police, they just act like they didn't exist as they were marching and protesting. So those are the three things that I want to talk about today. My personal opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement. I think on a surface level, it definitely is something that is bringing a light to a situation that needs to be addressed, which would be police brutality and violence. We have a historical legacy of police violence, police violently dealing with minorities, and in particular Blacks in inner city communities. So I think that that definitely is a good thing. I think that the problem with the movements of today, in light of social media, I think that when it gets politicized, that's when it kind of goes into the gray area with me personally. And I think that looking at it from that standpoint, in light of us in the Trump administration, I think that it kind of causes a rift in many ways, and the way it's being presented as well. Because sometimes I think that it gets to the point where we're either far right or far left with our perspectives, and sometimes it's a gray area in the middle that we have to deal with. And I think that, despite of the fact that I disagree with a lot of things that she says, Candace Owens did make a good point about the Black Lives Matter and on dealing with Black on Black violence. I have my personal opinions of that on that. But that was a good point about if it's going to be a Black Lives Matter. I don't think that it was developed to deal with Black on Black violence in the inner city, but I see that they were able to begin to kind of spread out the organization, because I'm beginning to see that they are also adding LGBTQ into a lot of the rhetoric of the Black Lives Matter movement. So I just want to kind of now open up the panel for discussion. If we could begin to talk and elaborate on how do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement? Is it overall good or bad for Black America? So if anybody has any question, we kind of could kind of deal with it. We could, if anybody has a question based off of what I said, then we could get into like the subtopic.